What's happening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I am John. What's going on, everybody?
We have, once again, more hockey to talk about. I say once again like we've been talking hockey these past couple weeks, which you could say we have been, maybe?
Kinda. I mean, we've been, whenever there's something to talk about, we haven't been making up, too many history back in, on this day type podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what happened, and if you don't, just open up a book, for Christ's sake.
I'm getting so tired of that stuff, too, man. I can't watch another old game.
I know. It's like it brings up the bad memories because you come from not having any hockey. They're like, oh, let me show you a game that already happened 30 years ago. You know the outcome, but watch it anyway. Like, who cares? I'm done with that crap. Like, give me some real hockey.
It was the 40th anniversary of the start of the Islanders' Strive for Five or whatever. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yeah, the 19 straight series wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just picture my father-in-law standing on his soapbox.
No.
In the shine, glory days, glory days.
And knock him off that damn soapbox. But we actually do have some news to talk about with what's going on in the NHL. We have an agreement that's been reached as of Friday night. This vote took place, and I believe all but two teams voted yes in this. The teams were, I think, Tampa and Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
But regardless, who cares? It overwhelmingly passed. The executive board of the Players Association and the NHL and the owners have agreed to move forward with negotiations about the league's plan for this 2014 playoff tournament that has been openly discussed for the past God knows how long.
Right.
This does not mean that it's over yet. There's a lot of stuff they need to work out. The framework for everything.
Funny, man, too? When they announced that the vote passed, all these people are like, hockey's coming back. I'm like, not
of.
Really. Yeah, I mean, yeah, eventually. You're right. At some point in the next 10 years, we'll probably get some hockey. But pump the brakes, if you will.
It's like you just bought a car, but the car doesn't have an engine. You got a little bit of work to do.
That sucks. Yeah, you got a lot of work to do.
Exactly. So it's a positive sign, nonetheless.
Nobody showed you the Carfax on that one.
No. I only went by Kelly Blue Book, and that's just the generic. This is your year model, this, that,
Gotcha. Stupid
that's
Kelly.
The last time I buy a car from Craigslist, damn it. But back to the hockey talk here. There, again, lots of things to work on with this. One of the main things, which is the reason why we're going through all of this, is they need to figure out a way to test for COVID-19 with frequency and accuracy, and they need to make sure that everybody playing, all the people involved, staff, training staff, coaches, players, people involved with the arenas, we'll get to that situation here in a bit, everybody's safe. We need to make sure that everybody's safe, everybody's staying healthy. I've heard about, testing every 2 days. 24-hour test results, you get them within a day. I mean, but what's going to happen if you test the night before a game? Some guy has it, but it doesn't come back till after the game next night. What?
I feel like the minute somebody tests positive, they have to stop it all again. Mm-hmm. Like the minute someone tests positive and they're like, oh, well, people in the locker room, especially if they're sharing a locker room because they're playing in just two arenas or whatever they're deciding to do, it's all going to shut down.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, again, we talked, if there's going to be a plan, which I'm assuming will be a plan if a positive test comes back from one of these players. Right. Then we talk about where these games are going to take place. ESPN's Greg Wyshynski has been saying that there's 2 hub cities that are being considered. We don't know which cities they are. I know for a fact that Edmonton apparently is making one hellish pitch to become one of those hub cities.
And Vegas too, right?
Vegas, I feel like Vegas would be a terrible choice. Maybe that's just me. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. If everything's still shut down, I guess it really doesn't matter where you play. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if things are opening back up in Vegas, there could be some issues with that, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's just one of the biggest.
All the NHL players hanging out in Vegas.
Oh, God, that is a recipe for utter disaster.
Can I just, really quick, there's just something weird about all of this. Like,
you don't say.
Like 3 weeks ago, it was all, no one should go anywhere. Everybody needs to just put their life on pause because it's all about remaining safe. But once this unrest started to happen in various states amongst different people, it seemed like there just was a little bit extra added pressure, whether it be political or business or anything like that, where all of a sudden, like, you've got our governor, Cuomo, who I think has done a really nice job without trying to get too political here. But, he's like, stay home, stay home. Oh, New York would be a great hub city all of a sudden. Like, wait, huh? It's just, some of it's a little confusing to me. It's like, we're cautious. Oh, wait, if we're going to do this, well, New York, let's get in this.
You know what it is?
Well, I mean, I can make a few guesses.
It's the money.
Of course it
Cuomo
is.
wants the revenue from this. And don't get me wrong, if there's no fans, there's not going to be nearly as much, but it's still something.
And again, anybody listening to this, it's not me taking a political stance. It's just weird. Like, all of a sudden, you've got these people in states where it's like, we've been on high alert, and now we just want to start hosting these things. Like, we were talking about Grand Forks.
Yeah.
And now we're, hey, come to New York City. We're only just leading the world in deaths.
Come to the coronavirus hub where everyone's got it.
It's puzzling. But anyway, you're staying strictly hockey. I have a hard time getting behind the hub city thing.
Really?
I understand the reasoning for it. I 100% understand the reasoning for it. You want to limit travel. I get it. That makes sense. But as somebody who follows the sport, is a fan of the sport, it's just weird to think that it's like a World Junior Tournament on freaking steroids.
I mean, you think about it, come March Madness time for college basketball, none of these guys are playing on their home courts.
I know.
So it has a bit of that type of essence to it. But again, like you said, it's very strange, especially considering there's not going to be any fans involved. It's like, how are these guys, how are they going to know when to shoot the puck? That's my biggest question.
Wait, why do you need fans to know when to shoot the puck?
Because when have you gone to a game and not heard fans yell shoot every single time Jake Voracek touches the puck?
I'd like to think these people don't make millions of dollars because they have learned to shoot it when the fans yell shoot.
But the fans always know best.
That was one of the most bonehead things you've ever said. See, if you downloaded the right thing beforehand, you could have edited the part where you said that bonehead bit.
No, I can
but
still
now
edit
we
it.
just have. Oh no, we don't edit with this.
I know we don't. We do one take. We've always done one take, and it's bit us a couple times because my mic cuts out or something else happens.
In chat, so go nuts.
I'm gonna mute you so damn hard. But no, if you would have sensed the sarcasm behind that statement.
There was no sarcasm.
There was some sarcasm.
No.
Okay.
Now you're backtracking.
Anyways,
you're playing politics. You're getting the money.
Rewind. Anyways,
we're
going to get back to this. So, again, lots of things to work out. The hub cities. If you could pick, I mean, this is completely out of left field. If you could pick two hub cities, do you have a preference?
Yeah, the most bizarre, the best. Can we get Alaska? Maybe we'll do one there, and maybe in Antarctica we can get another one. Like, I think if we're going to go hub city, right? If you're going to go a place where you should go just a place that never really has hockey, like professional hockey. Get a big old what the F type situation going on. Can we play on Mars? Because if we can play on Mars, that's where I want to go.
But then you run the risk of turning this into a novelty, though.
Dude. Run the risk of this being a novelty? That's all this is.
For how serious they're trying to take this, though, by putting forth these steps. And then you say, you know what? F it. Let's just play on a rink outside in sub-zero weather up in, the northernmost part of Canada. Like,
why not?
Because it just doesn't make sense.
You're not going to have... Dude, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. We're a professional sport, okay? We're with all these different city names, and then we're going to play in front of no fans, right? They're all going to be locked in hotels, but they can come out when they want to, when it's time for them to play, like it's freaking Gladiator, okay?
That's how it should be treated.
They're going to be taken away from their families, and this whole thing's ridiculous. So if we're going to go to bum FUK Idaho to play a hockey game, why not? I mean, no one's going to go anyway.
It's true. Good point. I'll give you that.
Yeah, good point. You might as well give some of these states their due. And I know I sound very sarcastic, but if nobody can go to the game, I truly don't care where the hub city is. Hopefully the safest place. So if Idaho has no COVID-19 cases and they happen to have a hockey rink somewhere, do it.
I'm with you on that 100%. I think it needs to be two extremely safe cities, states, whatever. You need to know that wherever you're bringing these guys, because you're going to have, upwards of 15 teams in those, depending on whether they resume the regular season or not. We could potentially touch on that here in a bit as well. But you're going to have multiple teams in the same state, in the same city likely, and
I've got a cool idea for a hub city.
Okay.
It's a little wild, but I think I have a cool idea.
Well, everything you pitched today has been wild so far, so
find places like Lake Placid. Lake Placid hosted the Olympics a long time ago. They would never be able to do it again because of what the Olympics has turned into, but that town is built for events, especially events that aren't going to have a crazy amount of people. They have hotels. Nobody can use them right now. They've got all these resorts. They've got 2 hockey rinks, 2 Olympic rinks that they could play right there. I think that would be cool to play the tournament at a historic place like Lake Placid. Well, might have to watch out for the giant alligator. But
that's the breaking point for me. I don't know if I'm willing to do that.
But I could get behind it. I love going to Lake Placid. It's one of my favorite places to go. But I really think, they could kind of shut down the area and make it just for these NHL teams. I think it'd be cool.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, a lot of these nations that have hosted the Olympics, some of them have built complexes that have not strictly been used just for the Olympics, but once the Olympics are over, it's like these things kind of fall by the wayside. It's just like, what are we supposed to do with this complex that we just built? Let's look at that. If it needs to go international because there's an empty rink in Kazakhstan that we can play in.
I ain't trying to watch games at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's a good point. But regardless, if you
try to keep it
like
North America or real crazy like Antarctica or Mars.
Yeah, Mars would be wonderful.
That'd be cool. I don't know what the time difference is though.
I don't know either, but that was definitely sarcasm on my part.
I mean, I think it would be really cool.
Zero gravity hockey.
Try to find places that Metallica has not played.
Ooh, good point.
You know what I mean?
Haven't they played?
Like, they've probably played in Mars.
You know where they don't play? On sites that you can download their music for free. Thanks, Lars, you jackass.
That was good. That was good.
I'm earning my way back into the talk here.
All right.
Yeah, 2 safest cities, obviously. We don't have anything on that and what the safest cities would be, but whatever they are, awesome. Let's make it happen. So, I guess one of the final points here, this absolutely does not mean that the NHL is going to cancel the remainder of the regular season. Technically, it could still get played out. Mm-hmm. But the premise of this playoff that we're talking about, this 2014 playoff, is that we aren't going to get the opportunity to finish the regular season, so we include those bubble teams on the outside that could have potentially made it to the playoffs had they played the 82 games.
Right.
Now, if we do finish the regular season, there's really no point to a 24-team playoff, correct?
Exactly. But at the rate we're going here, come on now, we're not going to finish the rest of the regular season.
Unless you really want to squeeze it in, it's just I doubt that's going to happen.
It's so unnecessary at this point.
I agree. I think it is too. And I mean, I wrote a piece on it that we're going to dig into a few numbers here if we've got some time. The major finding that I found was that over the last 5 years, and I only did the last 5 years because, I have a life outside of this, folks. Whether you believe it or not, I don't. But anyways, there really hasn't been much change. And we took the date in which the season was postponed this year, March 12th. So March 12th for the past 5 years until the last game of the NHL season was played. There hasn't been much of a difference in the teams that make the playoff, no matter which conference.
Right.
We did some crazy digging here because, again, I have no life. So I decided to just put in the research.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, and I think at this point, it's not a continuation of this season anyway. Any motivation that any team, any player had is gone. It just doesn't matter anymore.
It's a damn shame because the Flyers were playing so well.
You're right. And when you think of the home stretch before the playoffs start, it's about building that momentum. It's that excitement of who's going to get in. It's just not the same thing now.
It's not.
I mean, so if we're get creative, I like the idea of this 24-team playoff. Why don't we just get these teams that could have made it in? But at the same time, to think the Montreal Canadiens could just get hot when they weren't in a playoff position. They weren't in a playoff position, correct?
No, they were not.
No. When they weren't in a playoff position, I don't know. I think there's something wrong with that.
Well, did you see a lot of the teams were actually using that as an argument for this? Because, let's be honest, Carey Price, when he's hot, you're not beating him. When he's not hot, he's a pedestrian. Mm-hmm. So it's Carey Price could easily steal you a series or two and knock out the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round, is who they would presumably be playing in this 24-team playoff format. And then the next round, if the Flyers stay the 4 seed, Montreal would be playing Philadelphia. Right. So imagine the first 2 rounds, Montreal takes out 2 of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. That's... I know a lot of people that would not be happy with that.
And it's weird, man. I know that we want to view this as the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they're playing for the Stanley Cup, and because that's what you play for in hockey. If you... I know.
Let me write that down.
I know. That's what you play for in hockey. Oh, I thought you were still writing it down. I was repeating it for you.
I write fast.
Oh, okay. Fast writer Derek. That's what they call him. Anyway. Anyway, what am I even trying to say? I had actually... Oh, this is just turning into a March Madness tournament. This is we need to do something because we need some sort of money, which I totally understand. But it's this is not the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's asterisks all over this thing. I'm sorry, because these aren't the 16 teams that deserve to be in the playoffs. This is 24 out of the 31. You might as well call this the OHL. I mean, it's insane to me, man. I just can't. I can't get behind a team that just happened to be the 24th team in this thing, raising the Stanley Cup because they just got hot in this wild little playoff thing.
You bring up an interesting point with the asterisks, because the article that I wrote had a quote from Matt Duchene, and Duchene was on Sportsnet 590, and he said, I believe let's keep it as traditional as possible. I'd love to see us jump to a 16-team playoff. And then I'm kind of moving on with the quote here. You don't want to have a COVID cup, but I'm worried that if we force this thing and try, it's a little gimmicky and it's not quite right. Whoever wins the cup is going to have people try to take it away from them for their whole lives. And guys don't deserve that. And
right.
Which he nails it home right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a great accomplishment regardless. If the team that wins this, awesome. I think that's really cool, and, you deserve it. But at the same time, it's just hard to then put that in the same category as all the other Stanley Cups, what the St. Louis Blues were able to do last year. You're going to compare that to this thing? It just doesn't seem right. I said give them a different trophy. If you need another generic white dude's name, how about Charlie? It could be the Charlie Bowl.
The Charlie Bowl. I like the Derek Bowl. The Derek Cup.
No.
Yeah, I like it. I like the Derek
Cup. Or the John Jar.
That just sounds like a spittoon.
It's just this raggedy wooden thing. Woo! I won the John Jar.
Ping.
2020 John Jar champions.
I can guarantee you it'll be lighter than the actual Stanley Cup. But
I mean, it's tough, dude. And I think that I don't care what anybody says. If your team is not the team that wins this Stanley Cup, you're going to bitch about it all the time. And be like, well, it's not real. And I don't care that you say that you're not going to do it, because you're going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
The only group of fans that's not going to do it is the team that wins.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the Penguins winning this. It's going to be like just another Stanley Cup for them, and it's going to give all of us another reason to say, God, I hate those sons of bitches in Pittsburgh. Right. And it's going to be like, well, it didn't count. But to Pittsburgh fans, it did.
It just, I don't know. I think it'd be great to get hockey back, especially summertime. I think it would be awesome to, on a July night, just sit out in the backyard, hook up the TV, and watch some playoff hockey. Like, that'd be pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So I would enjoy watching it, but it's just hard to really get behind it determining the champion of this season. I just think it has to become its own entity at this point.
It does. Duchesne kind of hit it on the head, where this is starting to become kind of gimmicky. And for the sake of fairness, I understand. And I understand expanding it because, technically there was 12, 13, sometimes 14 games left for some of these teams to play. So in those games, they could have made that push for a spot, depending on how the chips fell. But at the same rate, it's like you've had over 3/4 of the season, really, when you think about it, to kind of prove you belong. So, if you couldn't have done it by then, yeah, you're on the bubble. But at the same rate, it's like, man, you didn't show me enough in the games. And let's be honest, too. Again, like you said, without getting a little too political, we kind of knew this was coming by all the panic and the franticness from other nations. And then all of a sudden it hit America and everybody's like, oh my God, I didn't see it coming. You saw it coming. And, I feel like it should have upped the sense of urgency for some of these teams a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've got really nothing to say there. That's me just put my foot in my mouth. No, I mean, I think that the best thing for the NHL to do, and I think a lot of people would be okay with this, is to come out when they decide that they're going to do this thing. They can hold a press conference and they go, listen, we completely understand that this is not going to be the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just something that we could have not predicted happened. But as a league and as a fan base and as players, we need some sort of closure. And we can't have our traditional playoffs. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a 24-team tournament to determine the champion of 2020. They don't need to say Stanley Cup champion, just say the champion of 2020. We understand that it's gimmicky, but it provides fans with something, and it gives us closure to the season. And then right after that, I want to know what's happening for everything else. When's the draft happening? When's free agency happening? When's the next season most likely going to happen? No more of this. Well, we're going to talk about it again, and then we're going to vote on whether or not we should talk about it some more. Like, they need to say, this is what we're doing, this is our gimmick, this is our WrestleMania, and then we're going on, we're doing this.
For lack of a better term, shit or get off the pot.
Right. Because you got to get off the pot. If you're not going to poop, man, you just got to get off the freaking toilet. Like, at this point, I just want to hear something definitive.
Yeah, they're about a week or so away from their leg falling asleep.
Right. Right. By this point, I've guzzled all the laxative.
Yeah. Exhausted all resources.
We should probably stop talking about poop.
Yeah, but one thing I did want to touch on real quick before we move on, because I want to get to the draft as well with you. You had a couple tidbits of info you wanted to share on that. I want to talk about one tidbit. Well, yeah, but nonetheless a tidbit. So
it was more of a tid.
A tid, yes. We had a tid to touch on.
Touch the tid. Touch it.
Ooh, boy.
Touch the tid. Anyway,
this is going off the rails real fast. Yeah. So Again, like I said, I compiled some numbers. I kind of want to. I'm not gonna, sit here and spout it off.
You just want to show off the numbers, okay?
I want to. It's you do a project, you're proud of it, you want to share it. So this is what I'm going to share.
You sound like one of my students. Okay, go.
I'm a student of the game, son. But anyways, so we go back to 2014-2015, March 12th. You see the seedings. You see who's in the top 3 for each division, the wild card, yada, yada, yada. You get to the end of the season, and when you get to the end of the season, you look at the rankings, and you look at the seeds. 3 out of 3 of the Atlantic Division teams remain the same.
Mm.
Then you get to the Metro Division, and 2 out of the 3 teams remain the same. Washington actually replaced Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh fell into the wild card spot. So then Ottawa took the second wild card spot, and they hadn't been in the previous rankings on March 12th. So you had one team in the Eastern Conference that battled their way up into the standings that wasn't there on March 12th. So 7 out of the 8 teams were already in a playoff position. And that's just the Eastern Conference. You get to the Western Conference, same thing. 7 out of 8 teams, except you had one wild card team that didn't make it in. Winnipeg wasn't in the standings, much like Ottawa, and they battled their way up to a wild card spot. So right then and there, you have 14 out of the 16 teams that year that were in a position to make the playoffs March 12th that did make the playoffs. Only 2 teams got into the playoffs after not holding a spot earlier in the season. You get to 15-16.
Oh, Derek, you're going to have to be general with this, buddy.
Exactly.
You can't go through all the years.
15-16 was much the same. Philadelphia ended up battling their way into a wild card spot, and they're the only team that wasn't in the rankings on March 12th. Minnesota, same thing in the Western Conference. 16-17, the Eastern Conference literally remained the same from top to bottom. Central Pacific all had the same 6 teams, but in different seeds. Wild card,
let's get
flipped
to the point. Let's roll another joint.
Basically, from
I'm waiting for Derek to get really pissed off at me.
Oh, no, I'm not going to get pissed. I'm just literally from 16-17 that season all the way to last season. Every single Eastern Conference team that was in a position to make the playoffs on March 12th made the playoffs in that same exact seed. The Western Conference showed the most parity, where the last 2 seasons, 18-19 and 17-18, they had one team battle their way into a playoff spot that wasn't in that playoff spot on March 12th. So when you look at it in a general sense, and altogether, of the 40 teams to finish in the top 3 of their divisions over the last 5 years, in the Western Conference, 36 of them made it. Eastern Conference, 38 of them made it. So altogether, 74 out of the 80 teams that were in a playoff spot on March 12th over the last 5 years made it into the playoffs. That leaves only 6.
So if I was to make an assumption on your thoughts, we could just play 16 teams and it would be pretty accurate right now.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head right there. Aside from maybe one team, which that team can gripe and piss and moan about it all they want. Fact of the matter is they didn't do enough with the time they had to make a playoff spot. And, hey, boo-hoo. Cry me a
And
river.
again, this is a gimmick, so don't get too upset.
No, yeah. I found it interesting, and that was one of the things where I was like, okay, if I'm a team that's on that bubble, what kind of case could I make to say, well, I belong in the playoffs? Some of these teams do.
I was just giving you a hard time because it was too easy. Right.
It always is.
I mean, it was a little lengthy. Yeah, it was kind of like a story like my wife tells. It's like punchline, Care. Punchline. Holy moly. Just saying. I know I compared you to my wife.
I'm gonna just end the episode here.
Do you ever know one of those people where they're telling you a story and they feel the need to do the dialogue?
Oh, God.
It's like, and then he said, and then she said, and then they try to get like the voices too, and it's like, no, paraphrase.
Like just get to the point.
Somebody wanted, but so. Come on, let's do this. Ugh, drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this is lengthy. I covered it in my piece with PSN, so if you want to read more in depth, you can check that out. Read it.
Got depth, man.
Yeah.
You gave it to us.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you the summary of it essentially, but there's more in depth.
minutes.
That was definitely not 20 minutes. We've only been on this show for 30 minutes, and I know damn well it didn't cover 20. But anyways, that's...
So can I ask you something?
Sure.
Do you want a 16-team playoff? Do you want, or are you cool with this 24 thing?
I'm cool with it because of the format.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it.
That is something I don't think we touched on the format of it.
I mean, come on.
They all
at this point, you know.
Yeah, the round robin tournament 1 through 4, and then the play-ins for 5-12. You know, it's an interesting concept. It's different. I think it's something that might attract people that don't necessarily watch hockey. And especially considering it might be one of the only sports on at the time, it's like people are going to find the NHL might attract a different type of fan base after this, and it might actually work out. Or you detract the original fan base, and you just end up kind of back to where you started before all these lockouts too.
I mean, I think, listen, people are starving for sports, so even if, you know, a hockey fan is not all for this, they're going to watch it. I'd be shocked if people aren't watching this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, the problem with me, man, is I have a really hard time being sold on doing any of this. Like, I really think it's just time to put a bow on this year. You know, there's still so many things that are uncertain. You know, doing this is a risk, and if it's a risk, is it worth it? You know, I mean, I'm taking the business side out of it, of course, because I don't know the numbers, and I know that the NHL would take a hit financially. But I just think it's at some point you just need to be like, all right, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Then we need to, you know, I think that'll always be where I think they should go with this. But I'll be happy when they play, too.
Of course. I think that, you know, the owners, I'm sure the players as well, all want to get back to it, and they all want to play because this is their career. That's what they do. Right. But, again, there's a lot of things that need to be refined and need to be kind of combed over to make sure that they're doing this the right way.
This whole idea of, like, putting all of these players in 2 hub cities, or even if it was 3 or 4, and, like, taking them away from all of their family, you know, and essentially quarantining them to play a game.
Yeah.
It's strange to me. I don't know. I have a really hard time with it.
But it is a career for these guys. This is the career that they chose. So I'm assuming...
Yeah, but they didn't know they were going to be doing this.
You're right. You are right. But, I mean, let's be honest. As a teacher, you didn't know that you were going to be teaching over Zoom, you know, for the last how many months. So with these careers, things change.
I understand.
Things happen. But yeah.
But education, a little bit more of a necessity.
A little bit.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's strange to me. And I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. That's always how I've been. And I just think, like, there's certain things it's like, I don't know if it feels right.
That's why we work so well together. I'm more of a glass half full type guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
You just take a really long time to fill the glass.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to do it right. I'm pouring beer while you're over there pouring milk.
Yeah. Well, I can't do beer.
Yeah. That's a story for another time. Reminds me of the time we all got together. Oh, good God.
Yeah.
That episode was a train wreck.
That was maybe 12 beers per person.
Yeah, that was the most I've drank in a while. I can tell you that.
Well, so now I'm going to have to tell him.
So, yeah.
So yesterday I had a buddy over. You know, I have a good friend, and he has a wife and a small child and a dog, so it's like my doppelganger. So they came over, and we kind of had a little bit of Memorial Day something or other. The thing is, with me and my buddy, we can throw him back. Like, it's just we feed off of each other and just start drinking. So I put 16 beers in a cooler, and I was like, he hasn't offered to bring anything. This will be great. 16 beers. We'll stop at 8 apiece. It won't be too bad. So he walks in with 2 18 racks of different beer. And so now we've got the 18 beers that I had and the 16 beers I had, the 36 beers that he brought. And essentially me and him were the only ones drinking. My wife is pregnant and his wife was driving. So last night around 10 o'clock, we went to grab one more before they left. And there were 8 beers left in the cooler. Safe to say I have not felt this hungover since college. Today was a struggle.
Oh.
And my wife made me get up with the kids. She's like, yeah, I don't really care if you're hungover. So I'm like 5:30 on the couch, like, play with the iPad. Play with the iPad, I can't move.
That's how I felt waking up on your couch that night I was out. I woke up and I'm just like, I could die. I feel like
a
trash.
real degenerate.
Yeah.
Anyway, should I talk about the draft?
Yes, talk about the draft. You had some tweets you wanted to share as well. Let's get into that because that's another big point that we need to kind of figure out what's happening with.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because it started with that was the main talking point. Were we going to have this draft in the beginning of June, the end of June, where there wasn't really much focus on the playing hockey aspect for a little while. Yeah. And now it's like it kind of went on the back burner.
Now that there's a prospect of actually getting these games back up and running, it kind of took a back seat to that.
So June 5th or whatever it was is not going to happen because that's like next week. Mm-hmm. But Bob McKenzie put out in a tweet, it was a series of tweets. People were asking about that and the draft lottery and all that. He said that he's still hearing June 26th, whatever that Friday is. If it's June 26th is the Friday, then that's when it would be. So we're still talking essentially obviously before there's a conclusion to the year. Mm-hmm. Which is another thing that I'm like, well, what? Why? Now we're going to conclude things, so why don't you just hold off on the draft?
I mean, realistically, if we're going to finish this season and play it out, it's going to take a good bit to get through these games. You have that round-robin tournament, the play-in tournament. The play-in tournament's 5 games apiece per series. And then you get to the round of 16. So it's basically one round extra on top of what a normal playoff would be. So the normal playoffs take what? You want to say 2.5 months?
2.5 months, yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about that, let's say they start up back in the middle of June. You're playing all of June, all of July, all of August. The draft isn't going to happen until September. And then by then, teams are ready to report to training camp almost.
You see, man, I'm convinced that if this little play 24 playoff thing happens, we're not having a new season until Christmas next year.
That's man. I don't know if the NHL is going to be willing to do that.
Well, I heard that's what the NBA might be doing, and I'm assuming that we're going to. I don't want to talk about the NBA. Don't want to talk about the NBA. I'm just saying that they might be doing that.
Okay? The NBA is a trash league. We'll leave it at that.
But I just think if you're going to play, do it in sequential order at this point. I don't know.
It's so tough. Because, like you've said a million times, these types of circumstances call for abnormal,
right?
You want to call them
responses.
Maybe a reaction. Responses. That's better.
Of course it is.
Abnormal reactions, we'll call it that.
It's like you ate a bad steak and you had an abnormal reaction. It's different.
Modern problems require modern solutions. No matter how you look at it, this is tough. This is going to be a difficult time for not just the NHL, but any league that's trying to resume play. The NHL in particular, because let's be honest, they kind of fall by the wayside when you're talking about the NFL, baseball, basketball, yada, yada, yada. But they've got to find a way to make up for lost revenue. That's the bottom line. They really do need to find a way to make up all the money that they've lost already on the playoffs, concessions, arenas. The teams individually are hurting right now because they haven't been able to generate the revenue from these games that they lost.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know, man. This whole thing just is driving me nuts. I just think in terms of the draft, right? There's so much that's going to have to be altered when it comes to those picks and compensatory picks and all that. Mm-hmm. Where I feel like you don't need to do all that work if you're going to play out the year.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I know I'm right.
I'll save you the
I'll fill it in.
Can we talk about one more thing?
I don't know. Can we?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about one more thing.
Crowd noise.
Crowd
noise. So, I threw on the Bundesligas.
The Bundesligas.
And I know what it is. It's Bundesliga. I'm cultured.
Real quick, though, before you start this, I want to know, does this make you sick?
I could smell it through the microphone. Anyway, so in the Bundesligas, they filtered in or funneled in crowd noise. So there's no fans there. But it sounds like there is.
Okay.
But in soccer, it's like they're just constantly slur singing. They're like
chants and cheering and booing.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounded kind of cool. But what are your thoughts on if the hockey's being played, them putting in crowd noise?
I feel like it could add to the atmosphere, but there's no atmosphere if the fans aren't sitting in the seats.
Right.
At home,
it's players just think it would be stupid. Like
the thing that I am most looking forward to, though, if there are no fans, which it's looking like that is going to happen, is the commentary on the ice. Because we've seen these mic'd up segments with Konechny and Hayes. We're going to actually get to hear that during the game because it's going to be so quiet. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of F-bombs. I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of name calling. I'm looking forward to what's being said in the scrums after the whistle. I think the crowd noise would take away from that.
Yeah, I mean, every game would have to be played after 10 o'clock.
Yeah, they'd have to. What's the... we studied this in communications. Like, there's that hour where you're allowed to get away with more afterwards.
Yeah.
But I have been noticing recently that a lot of TV stations during the day let some slip. Like, no F-bombs, but, like, I hear shit a lot. And it surprises me. But at the same rate, it's like, well, kind of the times, so whatever.
There was a show I was watching recently. I can't remember, and I was surprised that it was cursing because of the channel that it was on. But I can't remember for the life of me what show it was.
Yeah, a lot of those shows are doing it. Comedy Central's notorious for it because a lot of the movies they play have that type of profanity.
Yeah, if you watched Comedy Central after a certain time, they would.
And they used to have those uncut, unedited. Yep,
not quite Cinemax level of unedited after 10 o'clock, but anyway,
every now and then you get a movie,
The crowd noise thing I think could be cool. But someone's got to be there to be like methodical about it. So like when someone scores a goal or there's a big hit, there should be a button for that kind of like it just can't be like it's got to flow with what's actually being like actually happening on the ice.
They probably have that thought out, but again, we're going to revisit these hub cities. How do you determine home and away teams? I guess the seeds will determine that, but
that's it right there. Seed.
You're looking at a series between, let's say, the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you're playing in Edmonton.
Right? Who's
going to get the boos? Who's going to get the cheers? Who's going to get taunted over the organ? Because that happens too.
Right.
There's a lot of ifs with that. Again, I stand by it. I want to hear the players. I think that's going to be much more entertaining than just some phony crowd noise.
Yeah, but it is going to be kind of weird, like just listening to like skates going up and down the ice. I think it's going to be strange. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, because when you think about it and you watch these games normally, when there are crowds there, you hear the skates, you hear the puck hitting the tape, you hear the sticks, but at the same rate you hear the reaction of the crowd when something happens, like you said, a big hit, a goal, so on and so forth.
Honestly, man, it's go time for the TV commentators. Like those color commentators, they better be ready to bring their A game because it's going to be so much harder to keep an audience. Like you have to bring out all the stops. Like I don't know the technical terms because I was never in that business.
You're going to have your A team on those games. There's no doubt about it. Like the Doc Emmerichs, the Kenny Alberts, they're going to be broadcasting these games.
No Joe Buck, please. Do you like Joe Buck? I hate Joe Buck.
No, I'm not a big fan. I know a lot of people like to complain about his bias towards the Cowboys, or and he likes to blow smoke up their rear ends. But I, even as a Cowboys fan, don't really enjoy him.
Kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Not a big Aikman fan on commentary either. Romo, though, another story, again, for another time. Love that man.
Should he do hockey games?
If Tony Romo knew hockey like he knows football, I would pay a monthly subscription to listen to him broadcast hockey games. I'm not kidding.
I think that they should really start getting creative with this. Like, for every team, try to find a color commentator or like a third guy who is a player from the past.
I nominate Joe Rogan. He's not a player from the past, but
don't get me going on the Joe Rogan thing.
I would love Joe Rogan as a commentator. He would bring so much just entertainment value to this product.
Someone's going to kick me in the teeth here, but I'm going off the rails here, Derek. I'm sorry. Please
I can mute you right now if you'd like.
No, I'm going to do it. When we're dealing with a freaking crisis and everybody's losing their jobs, you're going to tell me someone just inked $100 million deal?
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
I don't want to go there, guys. I'm sorry, but give me a break. Everyone's losing their jobs, but this guy's going to get $100 million. If I had the $100 million, I don't think anybody should be getting $100 million right now. Anyway, should we put a bow on this episode?
Let's put the bow on the episode, yes. So let's put that bow on by visiting again with you, John, and letting people know where they'll be able to listen to us.
All right, well, first you can follow us on Twitter at PodSTBullies. You can find us on the podcast things such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, or whatever it's called, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio,
Spreaker for now.
I said Spreaker.
You did.
I also saw an email that we're on a different thing. I don't know, but I've never even heard. No, that wasn't the one I saw. I saw a different one.
All right.
No, I'm going to tell you what it is now. Overcast.
I'm sorry.
Yes. So apparently we're on a weather app as well.
Yes, it's always Overcast for the Pod Street Bullies.
And finally, you can find it at my favorite, Podmuncher.
It always rains like hell on the Losers' Day Parade. Name that band.
Is that the Foo Fighters?
No, it's the Goo Goo Dolls. Loser.
Oh.
Anyways.
You just sang the Goo Goo Dolls.
I did. I like the Goo Goo Dolls.
Do you?
Crucify me for it. Don't care.
Give up forever.
You can find us on Twitter at PodStreetBob. That's myself. You can find John at PodStreetGove. And you can find us every week here with the Pod Street Bullies, even during this glorious quarantine. And I'm this close to muting John Gove. But before I do, I'm going to leave you as I always leave you. Let's go Flyers.
Bye now.